The next day arrived quickly, and Juliet found herself sitting at a cozy, upscale cafe in Garki. Her first date was supposed to be with a man named Victor, 36 years old, a consultant, and lover of books and dogs, according to his profile. Suddenly, a tall, broad-shouldered man walked in wearing sunglasses so large they could double as a solar panel. He waved enthusiastically when he spotted her. Juliet's eyes widened. "Please don't let that be him." "Juliet," the man called out, grinning like he'd just won a lottery. "Victor?" Juliet asked, her voice betraying her hesitation. "Yes. Finally, we meet," he said, dropping into the seat opposite her. "Ah, you look even finer than your profile picture." "Thank you," Juliet mumbled, forcing a smile. Victor whipped off his sunglasses dramatically, revealing bright red, watery eyes. Juliet blinked. "Are you okay?" "Oh, I'm fine, Victor said, waving his hand. "I just took something small to relax before the date." It was the first week of December, and the air in Abuja carried a soft, lazy chill. The streets of Wuse were already dressed up for Christmas, with strings of lights dangling over buildings and plastic Santas waving awkwardly from shop fronts. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in gold and orange as Juliet Okonkwo parked her car outside her best friend's flat. Inside, Ngozi was already waiting with a mischievous grin plastered across her face. "My dear Juliet, explain to me again why you agreed to this foolishness called 12 Dates of Christmas," Ngozi said, face full of exaggerated concern. Juliet sat down on the sofa. "First of all, it's not foolishness. It's a holiday adventure." Ngozi snorted. "Holiday adventure care? Because you want to go on 12 dates with 12 random men just because of a silly bet with your cousin? Juliet, fear God." Juliet rolled her eyes. "Ngozi, you don't understand. My auntie and her daughters have turned family gatherings into competition grounds. Every year, they flaunt their achievements, fiancés, expensive rings, even white boyfriends, while my mother is left looking like she didn't raise me well." Ngozi leaned forward on her seat. "Oh, poor you. But wait, what's the bet again?" Juliet sighed, already regretting sharing the gist. "If I show up single again this Christmas, I'll wash toilets for the whole festive season and pay Ada Aze $1,000. Ngozi's mouth fell open. "Toilet duties? Plus $1,000? Juliet, you agreed to this madness? What were you drinking that day?" "Ngozi, it's not just about the money. My reputation is at stake." Ngozi smirked. "Abeg, your good girl reputation is overrated. If you had been coming out more often instead of locking yourself in your apartment like a retired grandmother, maybe you would have found a man by now." Juliet raised a sarcastic brow. "Oh, you mean following you to clubs where men are sowing their wild oats like farmers preparing for harvest?" Ngozi burst into laughter. "You're impossible, Juliet. So where are you finding these 12 men? You went to the village square to collect applications." Juliet smiled smugly. "It's an elite matchmaking app. Very serious men, vetted and verified." "Vetted and verified?" Ngozi mimicked, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Juliet, let me guess. You'll meet the first guy, and he'll tell you he's a businessman, but he'll refuse to explain what business he's doing." Juliet ignored her, pretending to scroll on her phone. The truth was, this whole adventure still felt ridiculous to her. But she couldn't forget last Christmas in the East. The family reunion had been more like a grand showcase. Ada Aze, Juliet's cousin, had walked in like a queen with her multimillionaire fiancé and her diamond ring that could blind a bird. She went straight to Juliet, wiggling her fingers so much it was a miracle the ring didn't fly off. "Juliet, my dear," Ada Aze had said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "See what God has done for me. Don't worry, he'll remember you one day." Juliet had smiled sarcastically. "Ada Aze, let's not lie to ourselves. God had nothing to do with this your so-called miracle. You and I know what you are really doing in Abuja. Just thank God that your hustle finally paid off." Ada Aze laughed, unbothered. "Before encore. Hustle must pay. I'm even offering to help you hustle too." I'll hook you up with a rich man. Thank you, Auntie Hookup, Juliet had replied sharply. I can find my own man, Arbeg. That was when Ada Ezza's mischievous side emerged. Let's make a bet. If you come back next Christmas with a boyfriend, I'll give you $1,000. But if you're still single, you'll wash all the toilets and pay me. Juliet had accepted the challenge without thinking. Pride had pushed her. Now, sitting in Ngozi's living room, reality was slapping her. Ngozi clapped her hands loudly, pulling Juliet back to the present. So, when is the first date? Juliet glanced at her phone and sighed. Tomorrow. They've already sent his details. Ngozi grinned like a child who had just been promised candy. I can't wait to hear the gist. Even if you don't find love, at least I'll get premium entertainment from your suffering. Juliet threw a pillow at her. You're very wicked, you know? Wicked but honest, Ngozi shot back, laughing. Juliet leaned back into the sofa and let out a long breath. The bet had started as a moment of pride, but now, a tiny part of her wondered if some miracle might actually happen. Abuja was full of surprises, after all. Ngozi, who had gone to check her cooking, called out dramatically from the kitchen, 12 men in 25 days? Juliet, just pray you don't meet somebody's husband by mistake. Juliet groaned loudly. Ngozi. From the kitchen, Ngozi's voice rang out. I'm just saying Abuja husbands have PhD in disguise. Juliet buried her face in her hands, laughing despite herself. If nothing else, she was sure of one thing, this December would not be boring. It wasn't until late in the evening that Juliet returned home. She walked down the quiet hallway of her apartment building, partially scrolling through her phone. Hi there, a calm voice said, breaking her focus. Startled, Juliet looked up to see a tall man standing a few feet away. He had kind eyes and an easy smile, dressed simply in a white shirt and dark jeans. His hands were tucked nervously into his pockets, and there was a slight shyness in the way he stood. Oh. Hi, Juliet said, offering a polite smile. I just moved in next door, he said, gesturing toward the apartment to her left. I'm Kelechi. Welcome to the building, Juliet replied warmly. I'm Juliet. It's nice to meet you, Kelechi said, his smile growing. If you ever need anything, I'm right next door. Juliet smiled warmly. Thanks, neighbor. Kelechi lingered for a second, as if wanting to say more, but instead gave a small nod and stepped back. Have a good night, Juliet. As he walked to his door, Juliet watched him briefly, appreciating the calm confidence he carried. But then her phone buzzed, reminding her of the disaster she had signed up for, 12 dates in 25 days. Focus, Juliet, she muttered to herself, shaking off thoughts of the handsome new neighbor. The next day arrived quickly, and Juliet found herself sitting at a cozy, upscale cafe in Garki. Her first date was supposed to be with a man named Victor, 36 years old, a consultant, and lover of books and dogs, according to his profile. Suddenly, a tall, broad-shouldered man walked in wearing sunglasses so large they could double as a solar panel. He waved enthusiastically when he spotted her. Juliet's eyes widened. Please don't let that be him. Juliet, the man called out, grinning like he'd just won a lottery. Victor? Juliet asked, her voice betraying her hesitation. Yes. Finally, we meet, he said, dropping into the seat opposite her. Ah, you look even finer than your profile picture. Thank you, Juliet mumbled, forcing a smile. Victor whipped off his sunglasses dramatically, revealing bright red, watery eyes. Juliet blinked. Are you okay? Oh, I'm fine, Victor said, waving his hand. I just took something small to relax before the date. Juliet froze. Took something small? Victor leaned in, whispering loudly, you know nah, just a little something to calm my nerves. Don't worry, it's herbal. Juliet stared at him, horrified. Before she could respond, Victor suddenly started snapping his fingers and nodding to a song only he could hear. Waiter, he called out, startling Juliet and half the cafe. The waiter approached hesitantly. Victor slapped the table. Bring 2 bottles of Coke and meat pie, hot one. My babe and I are celebrating. Juliet tried to protest. Actually, I'll just have. Don't worry, Juliet. Victor interrupted, winking. You'll love it. It's the best combo. Juliet sat stiffly as Victor proceeded to talk non-stop about his herbal remedies, his uncle's farm, and a conspiracy theory involving pigeons spying on Nigerians. Juliet nodded occasionally, trying not to laugh or scream. When the waiter finally arrived with the meat pies, Victor clapped like a child. He grabbed one pie, bit into it, and let out a loud yelp. Hot. Hot. He fanned his mouth wildly, spilling Coke on the table while Juliet watched in mortified amusement. Are you okay? She asked, biting her lip to hold back laughter. Victor, still fanning his mouth, grinned sheepishly. Ah, no Warala. It's all part of the experience. When the date mercifully ended, Juliet stepped outside to breathe fresh air. Victor followed her, still holding the half-eaten meat pie. So, when are we seeing again? He asked enthusiastically. Juliet smiled politely. I'll get back to you. As she hurried to her car, she heard Victor shout behind her, Don't forget herbal remedies are the future. Juliet drove off, shaking her head and laughing hysterically. 1 down, 11 to go. Juliet stumbled into her apartment later that evening, kicking off her shoes as her phone buzzed with an incoming call. It was Ngozi. Babe, Juliet said with a dramatic sigh. Juliet, how far? How did it go? Ngozi asked, already giggling. Ngozi, Juliet started, rubbing her temples. You won't believe it. Try me, Ngozi dared, laughing like she already knew the disaster that awaited. Juliet groaned. The guy showed up looking like he just finished crying and decided to fight sleep for 4 days straight. His eyes were redder than Lagos traffic light. Ngozi burst out laughing. Ah, Juliet. Maybe he saw your beauty and started weeping for joy. Weeping for joy? Juliet hissed. My dear, he was high on something and he said it was herbal. Ngozi's laughter reached a new level. You're finished. So he even confessed. He even offered to sell me some. Juliet said with exasperation. He said he could feel our energies synchronizing. Ngozi screamed. Energies care? Did you tell him to synchronize himself back home? Juliet shook her head, even though Ngozi couldn't see her. I should have. I really should have. But you know my problem. I am too nice. I just sat in peace while he synced with his ancestors. Ngozi couldn't stop laughing. You are a clown. Just then, another call came in. Juliet glanced at the screen. Ah. My mother is calling. Let me call you back, she said quickly. Better pick it. Tell her you've finally found your spiritual partner, Ngozi teased before hanging up. Juliet picked the call and straightened up. Mother, good evening. Juliet, my daughter. Her mother's voice came through, warm and loud. How are you? Have you started packing? Packing? Juliet frowned. For what? For Christmas, nah. Her mother said, as if Juliet had asked why people breathe air. Your father and I are waiting for you here in the village. You cannot miss Christmas at home because of that stupid bet between you and Ada Aze. Juliet froze. Her heart skipped a beat. Mother, how did I know? Her mother interrupted, unimpressed. Ada Aze's mother has told every passing fly in this village. Even mosquitoes are aware. But don't worry. Your father and I have found a godly young man for you. Juliet sat up, her eyes widening. Huh? Yes so. Her mother continued with the excitement of someone announcing a jackpot win. You will like him, Ada. He is tall and handsome. Very handsome. And he even has his own shop. Juliet blinked. Shop? Yes. He sells phone accessories, her mother said proudly, as if the young man owned Dangote refinery. Juliet dropped her head into her palm. Mother, let me think about it. Think about what? Her mother retorted. Don't think about it. Pray about it. Your father and I, we are already praying for you. You two will like each other. Mother, Juliet started, But her mother wasn't listening. "Don't worry, my daughter. It is settled." Then, before Juliet could argue, the line went dead. Juliet leaned forward, staring in horror. Things had officially gone from bad to worse. Now, the entire village knew about the bet. And her parents finding her a husband? That was the final nail in her coffin. "I'm finished," she muttered. Ada Azay would fry her alive. This 12 dates thing just had to work.